Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Digital Inception, a podcast dedicated to spotlighting emerging tech in sales and marketing. So I have a special guest with me today. Welcome, Nick Smith, CEO and founder at Sales.ai. Sales is doing some very cool things in sales and prospecting using AI. So welcome, Nick. Love for
Thank
you
you,
to
Alison.
Thank you. And I'd love for you to do a brief introduction of yourself and the company, and then I'll get more into the questions in a little bit here.
Okay, great. Well, it's so great to be here again, Allison, and thanks for having me. Sales is a company I founded after a long sales and sales leadership career. And, honestly, it's so deeply rooted in the problem. I spent so much time as a sales leader wondering, why are there so many different point solutions helping salespeople or enabling salespeople to be a little bit better or make prospecting a little bit softer? And so my idea way back in 2018, which feels like ages ago, was couldn't there be one AI product that did all of this, that did all of the research, all of the data sourcing, all of the waterfall enrichment, and of course, automation, but also, qualified and carried opportunities to the next step. So at the time, I remember thinking, this is really narrow. And as it turns out, it's not. It was audacious. And so our company, Sales, created a product called the SailBot that was the first AI for autonomous prospecting. So it starts at zero, goes all the way through to qualifying opportunities on behalf of sales reps while being unique to their personality.
Well, I can relate to that. I mean, I know how painful it is to do prospecting. It's like one of the most time-consuming things. I think that is a necessity, though, right? So I think it's really valuable to be able to automate a lot of that. So I'm wondering, you talked a little bit about why you started the company. What was the thing that really inspired you, and what has your journey been like so far?
I think it was, was thinking back on my own career and the parts I loved and the parts that I didn't like. And how invigorating it was to sit across from a business owner or a head of marketing or a brand manager, someone that was, able to share intimate details about their business, and how fun for me it was to, throughout the course of a day, learn about different types of businesses. That was the part I loved. But I had to do so much work to get to that part I love. Most people, if they take a job or they choose a career field, they do it because they want their work to feel deeply meaningful, not like tasks. And you can get there in sales. You can get to that place where you're solving problems and you're creating solutions. But there's a lot of junk you have to sort through to get there, and an obstacle course you have to hop over. And so I was trying to solve that problem. And what's interesting is I knew then that AI was uniquely positioned to solve that problem. And so we were very much problem first and AI second. But AI was always the difference maker. And I should be clear, authentic AI. It was really the difference maker in making this product a reality.
So, and I know there's so many options out there for how to make prospecting easier, so many different tools that do so many different things. And then how do you know which one does what and which ones overlap in certain areas? What are some of the very specific pain points or use cases, would you say, that sales really does a very good job of addressing?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. And I'll say it this way first. I wasn't surprised that there was a need for what we were doing just because it came from my career and I knew the problem. What has surprised me a little bit is the different applications and the reasons people buy this. So I think most sales managers or chief revenue officers or VP of sales look around their team and say, I wish we had three more of her, or I wish we had three more of him. But they see the rest of the team, and their strategy somehow is, why don't we enable the rest to try and be the best? And so that is one reason that people come to us and they say, can you multiply my best people? And we say yes. Another reason is just pipeline generation. There are so many companies that just need more, but there's a lot of companies that value data, insights, and intelligence and look at the leads or revenue opportunities as sort of a byproduct of learning more, learning about their true ICP, learning about their markets more. And so our product offers a lot in the way of that as well. So different people buy it for different reasons. But you make a good point. As a buyer today, I've got to be able to sort through and sift through the jargon on websites that make it seem like this does all of these things and really dig into what problem does this solve. So at the core, what our product does is it takes companies from zero to qualified hands-free, and it learns while it does it, while being unique to your people, so you can multiply those best reps. There's a lot of different things within, could be contact data or something, or could be marketing automation, or like a sales intelligence platform, where there may be some overlap. But ultimately, the value here is it's one product that takes it from zero to qualified hands-free.
So when you say, like replicate your best people, what types of things are those best people doing that they're really, really good at that, you'd want to replicate?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, sales is a human job. It
Mhm,
is. And it's the humans that make a difference. I think
mhm,
one of the problems today is most salespeople are not doing human worthy work. So salespeople do their best work when their personality can show, when critical thinking and problem solving shows, when their approach shows. And so if you use our product, it's not like a seat on a platform, it's unique to you. And maybe you take a completely different approach than someone else on the sales team you're on. And that approach could be, some people start at the top, some people start at the bottom and work their way up. That's just
mhm.
one sort of tactic or nuance
Right.
that our product accounts for. And I think that's what separates people as well. Their unique approach to the market makes them stand out.
If you had to pick your most direct competitor that maybe most people here would know about, would have heard of, what would you say your biggest competitive advantage against that competitor would be?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, because just like people bias for different reasons, they bring up different folks. And so I would say most often we hear about some of like the contact database companies, and it's just, they've been in the market a long time. I think most companies we talk to are used to buying data. Either
Yeah.
they're buying data from professional B2B databases that we all know, or they're using a more complex solution with different integrations required and different scenario modeling to try and arrive at some sort of contact enrichment. Here's where I think the difference is. Salespeople have been trained to do something that goes like, have an idea, build a list of companies, find people, go through the list, and then at the end, throw away what's left over or nurture them, and then build a new list. Well, the difference here is the SailBot is starting all the way back at building the list and constantly finding people and engaging them and nurturing them and qualifying them. It's doing that whole process, but it's not as static because it's constantly working, constantly finding new people to engage with, new contacts. And so it's similar in that it's doing the same function of the job. It's just doing it autonomously and kind of doing the heavy burden on its own.
Yeah, and I guess consistency would probably play into that as well because it's hard too if you're a salesperson to just relentlessly do those activities in hopes that, it will result in something. But sometimes consistency is the key to that, right? It's just continuously doing those activities. And it's hard to not give up, right, on specific accounts or leads or whatever where you're not seeing results. Would you say that that is also like part of it, where some things might slip through the cracks or get neglected by a salesperson? Sales really helps automate those tasks so that they continuously happen, even if the salesperson is focusing on other things.
You're 100% right, because as much as we all don't want to admit it, things do fall through the cracks. It's
Yeah.
not just the things that fall through the cracks that are known, like really wanted to follow up and I missed that opportunity, so now I have to go back to them. It's the less obvious companies, the less obvious prospects that maybe you're not that excited to follow up with, right?
Yeah.
And so the SailBot is nurturing them to the front and really
Mhm.
uncovering why it makes sense to maybe be a little bit more excited to talk to them as well.
Yeah, and that actually made me think of something because I've worked in a lot of companies where, and I mean, sales is a skill, right? Like I wouldn't say anything bad about salespeople, but sometimes what I've noticed is that some salespeople, they go to like the new shiny leads, right? And so the the leads that they've been working for a while, maybe they've had a little bit of engagement in the past, but not a lot. They just kind of tend to forget about those because they're chasing the new leads that appear to be better, right? Like the grass is greener on the other side. So they kind of just forget about the rest. But I think that often it's like, I mean, sometimes it can take months, right, to get a meeting. Or if you're enterprise focused, it can take, yeah, 6+ months to get someone to agree to
Absolutely.
have a call with you. So it really does take that ongoing effort and not getting distracted by the new thing that comes in, right?
Yes. But let's think about it this way. I mean, the companies you work with, and obviously, I'm sure you talk about product market fit a lot, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think, or this might be leading, you're supposed to be the one asking the questions, I know, but thinking out loud, don't you think salespeople go through some version of product market fit themselves? I mean, when you start as a salesperson,
Mhm.
abundance is really, volume is really the only way you win because you don't really know what you're doing. And so
Yeah.
you do as much as possible, and you're sort of on this journey toward efficiency, right?
Mhm.
Where eventually you're going to find your own product market fit and be able to replicate what works in that consistency. I
Mhm.
think this is where like the shiny object syndrome comes in because generally sales prospecting is a very inefficient job. You can add
Mhm.
SDRs to it, you can add 13 different tools, and all you've done is add process automation to an inefficient process.
Right.
But at the human level, there's learning that comes from each of those steps. 500 calls becomes 50 in year two, maybe, or year five, whatever it is. And so I think that once that real fit, that grasp of what you're selling, where
Mhm.
you're walking down the street and it just, you feel prospects because you can see them around you. That's the hard part to get to, but I think once you get to that part, shiny object syndrome either gets a lot better or a lot worse.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I don't think people talk about that enough because as a salesperson, especially if you're coming into a new company, selling a new product, the process that maybe worked in the last company they worked at is not necessarily going to work at this new company. Maybe things work differently in the industry or they're targeting a different audience, right? So it's like a whole new process that they're learning and trying to figure out themselves what works for them. And that can take, a couple of years to really get your footing and like feel confident in knowing, like, okay, yeah, I know for sure I'm going after the right people, or I know for sure this is the best next step to take in the sales process. And bringing it back to, what you said about replicating your best person, that is so valuable in being able to cut that learning curve down for the salesperson who maybe just joined and they're still trying to find like their product market fit, right? So I like how that kind of brings it full circle a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. And yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Like salespeople, they're just expected to be hired, come in, start making deals and bring in revenue. And it's really not that simple, is it? It's actually like quite a learning journey.
It's such a learning journey and it can be a grind. And I think one of the aspects, and I don't want to sound too like self-promotional, but I do think one of the things that we've really tried to solve is how does AI help you discover what's not working sooner, you know?
Yeah.
Because that too is very expensive and time consuming, and that's part of that journey as well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I mean, the whole process of prospecting is time consuming. So you want to be able to remove those steps that are time consuming and also ineffective. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. What are some emerging trends that you see in marketing and tech sales right now? And how do you think that sales is positioned to capitalize on them?
So I know this word's being used a ton, and I remember in some deck, some meeting somewhere back in September or so, I thought it would be used a lot, but it
Mhm.
has, and that's hyper personalization. But what I would argue is, I think when I hear hyper personalization, I don't think about, really unique content, or I don't think about content so much. Here's what I mean. Like, we've all seen the email now, we get it. Like, hi, name, I noticed you were blank. Therefore, I wanted to talk to you about X and just show you why our Y might make sense. Like, to me, that's not hyper personalized. It's just, advanced merge fields or something like that. I think the big trend is hyper personalization in terms of AI beyond agents. Right. So this idea of a shared agent that's going to do, all this work and these repetitive tasks for me and my team. Well,
Mhm.
what if me and my team approach things in a different way? Or what if there's nuance to my position or my role in the team that
Mhm.
isn't captured enough by a shared agent? So hyper personalization, not in the sense of email content, but in the
Mhm.
sense of how AI can work for me, the person, I think is a really interesting trend, and that will continue. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of this year is, you know, 2023 was all about AI's everywhere, let's talk about it.
Mhm.
2024 was all about AI's everywhere, let's experiment with it. So far, the big question of 2025 is where's my ROI from AI? And
Yeah.
so, like, they've adopted, they've sampled, they've tried. What did it get us? I think people are asking tough questions. I think the reason I think we're uniquely positioned is because of our head start. We've been questioned on this, for 5+ years. And it's a question that enterprises and, teams should be asking. What is
Mhm.
the ROI from AI? And I think they should be asking it earlier, though, in the process. I don't think it's fair to companies that are innovating to buy up a bunch of things and then at the end say, what did we get for it? I think everyone's got to go in eyes wide open. What do we want this to do for us? And
Mhm.
so it really feeds into that personalized comment as well. Pretend this is your AI. What do you want it to do for you? What are the business outcomes you're expecting? And how often can we check in on that to make sure we're delivering that?
Yeah. And I think it also depends too, like how companies, like what you said, how you're using it, what your expectations are. There's some companies who aren't going to see ROI from AI because they haven't actually invested in using it to its full potential. Whereas some companies will really see huge value from it because they did invest in it, right? And they have actually adopted it, like fully embraced it, right? Not just bought it and expected something with very minimal time or resources investment into it.
Yeah, and even asking them, when you say AI, what does that mean to you? Because to some
Mm,
people, it just means everything everywhere all at once and not the movie, right?
right,
It
right.
just means like this is everything. And it's so ambiguous and broad that it would be impossible to
Mhm,
report back on an ROI. To
mhm.
some people, it's very, very narrow. It's text generation or something.
Right, yeah.
And so, like, what do when you say AI, how is AI going to solve this problem? What problem are you trying to solve? I think those are the important conversations.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point because even as I'm thinking about that, I've got my own definition of AI that I don't even know if that's the right definition. But
I,
like the way I think of AI is, productivity to me. I'm like, it helps me do things a lot faster, you know?
exactly. And it's a great definition because I mean that's the main benefit a lot of people are getting. But someone asked me, I think it was last year, I wrote something about what would you challenge enterprises to do differently with AI. And the big thing I said is like AI shouldn't be like the 13th tool. It shouldn't be just the next subscription. Like,
Mhm.
what is the bold vision for how this will fundamentally transform processes, teams, and therefore ROI? Like, it's not just meant to be another tool in the toolbox. And I think it's moving toward more how people spend, people spending more time with AI in their daily process, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And I think too, it's got to come from leadership. Leadership's got to spread that message that like we're a company that uses and embraces AI versus like each department in silos operating, buying their own little like AI tools that do like one or two things here or there. It's almost like part of the culture, right? Like this is the type of like where we want to be at the forefront of technology. We want to use the technology that's going to help the business overall, not just one part of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So looking ahead, what are the primary growth goals for your company over the next 12 to 24 months?
So as we got together as a team and talked about 2025 and really sort of divided up all the goals and ambition we have for this year into a few different buckets, one of the major things we're focused on is communicating value. So similar to the answer I gave, about ROI for AI, there's so much data the product consumes. There's so much intelligence it has. There's so much value that's being overlooked just because it moves fast and it does so many things that we want to do a better job of communicating it so that we don't have to feel like we're selling an ROI, if that makes sense. We want it to be visible to the customer instantly and see that. And to do that, we have to really grow our team of data scientists and machine learning engineers to make sure that we're uniquely positioned to take the data our product consumes, which only we have, which is the real kind of moat around the business, and productize that into something that communicates value and really helps sales teams just know with confidence that every single day the ROI is compounding as the intelligence of the product compounds.
Cool.
So that's one thing. I would say there's other typical company things like doubling or tripling revenue, growing the team in New York, and continuing to add great team members to both of our locations. So those are sort of the general goals. And then I guess finally, we're gearing up for a major new product launch, which I can't tell you all about today, but what I'll say is SailBot, we believe every sales team could use today. We think our new product will be what every sales team needs for the next 10 years. And so it's similar in nature in that it's one product that just covers a whole swath of workflows and operations. It's still true to the autonomous nature of, sort of our principle as a company is to build autonomous products, but it's so unique because it draws on everything we've learned to this point. And so when I look at, our investors will say to us, other people will say to us, like, sales was very much the pioneer, the category defining company in this space. And that's true, but that doesn't really matter unless you use that to build new things. And so drawing on that experience should make for an exciting back half of the year.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to see what this new product is all about. Sounds like.
We'll have to talk again.
Yeah, we definitely will. And then I've got one last question for you. If you could wave a magic wand to fix one thing in the business right now, what would it be?
Magic wand to fix one thing in the business. Yeah, this is selfish, but I would instantly want to get everything from every whiteboard in every brainstorm or product requirements doc or roadmap. I would instantly want it to be built, shipped, and I want to be in the room with the customers when they use it. Because I think here's what I've noticed. There were so many predictions we made in 2018, 2020 about where this space was going that have come true, that it's only just fueled this validation for where things are going. And I think the sooner we can get it into customers' hands, the more value they will see. So that's like one selfish one. I suppose the company would want me to say that we're trying to grow the team to meet this moment, right? And to seize the opportunity. And so we just can't, we can't go fast enough. And we want to go even faster and realize that as well. I mean, I'm making myself sound like speed is my only speed or fast is my only speed, but it's I think just realizing this moment, how rare it is, and the opportunity here and different forms of that, or what I would use a magic wand.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think, there's new exciting things that you want to launch and you want customers to be using. And it's like, if only everyone could just know that this exists right now, then you could have so many customers using it and actually experiencing that value that sales has to offer.
I'm telling you, family members, I know everyone has this story, but until you experience it, it doesn't really hold this much weight. But I'm telling you, family members, friends, old colleagues, everyone told me they either had the decency to tell me I was nuts and that this sounded crazy, or
Yeah.
they told me to get a job,
Yeah.
or they thought it was like a hobby or something. And so the reason I'm so eager is because it's even clearer today where things are going than it was in 2018. So it just makes me excited.
Yeah, it's just very validating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got all those people to prove wrong. I think entrepreneurs hear that a lot. Like I've heard that too, like get a real job. Like, why don't you just get a real secure job, And it's like, well, that's boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you again so much for joining me today. One last question is, where can people go to learn more about sales?
Yeah, so it's sales, SAILES.com. SAILES.com. Would love to see you there.
Sounds good. Well, thank you again, Nick. It was great having you.
Thank you so much, Allison. Talk to you soon.